Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. The White House plans to share 25 million vaccine doses with other countries without expecting favors in return. Meanwhile, the Chinese Communist Party is attempting to use the vaccine as leverage for political control in Latin America and elsewhere. Experts and lawmakers are urging President Biden to act quickly to counter the CCP. Biden signed an executive order banning U.S. investment in 59 Chinese companies. White House officials said the U.S. will not support Chinese companies that undermine the security or values of U.S. and its allies. A ransomware attack hits ferry services in Massachusetts. Online ticketing is down as the local transit agency tries to recover, but they aren't the only transport agency to be hacked recently. A southern Texas county is feeling the impacts of the border crisis. Locals say human traffickers use their county as a rest stop for illegal immigrants, and they're worried about their kids' safety. And a top U.S. news app called Newsbreak actually has links to China. This is raising concern again about Beijing's influence operation in the U.S. The White House announced a plan to share 25 million vaccines with other countries without expecting favors in return. To start the rollout, Biden is lifting some restrictions that could help vaccine makers in other countries get their hands on raw materials needed to produce more vaccines. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more.
The White House plans to send around 80 million vaccines globally by the end of this month. But to start, they're sending out 25 million, most of which, 75%, will be sent to a vaccine sharing facility called COVAX. COVAX will then distribute these vaccines mainly to Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Africa. The other 25% will be shared with U.S. allies, countries who are experiencing surges, and other countries who are experiencing some form of crisis.
We also know that this won't be enough to end or reduce the lifespan of the pandemic. And that's why we're working with allies and partners to expand the production of vaccines and raw materials.
Biden supports temporarily waiving intellectual property rights for vaccines so that companies in other countries can produce more vaccines themselves.
We're in a position to help others, so we will help others.
And the White House is making it clear that they are not expecting political favors in return. That's in contrast to China, which has used vaccine distribution as a pawn to gain political control in Latin America and the Caribbean. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, used vaccine sharing to force Brazil and the Dominican Republic to reverse their commitment to ban Huawei from their 5G networks. Paraguay, Honduras, and others were asked by the CCP to cut ties with Taiwan in exchange for vaccine donations. That's why experts and lawmakers alike want the Biden administration to act fast in sharing these vaccines to try to stem the CCP's abuse, using vaccines as leverage to expand their hostile agenda.
This is crucial not only for the region's economic, social, and political stability, but also in pursuit of hemispheric security and democracy.
The Biden administration has also committed to sharing with other nations all 60 million of the AstraZeneca vaccine, but that one hasn't been approved for use yet in the U.S. But as soon as the Food and Drug Administration clears it, the U.S. will be prepared to ship millions more vaccine doses around the world. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Israel's defense minister met with Secretary Blinken in Washington, D.C. This as the Israeli prime minister is potentially on the brink of losing power. NTD's Steve Lance has more from State Department.
Israel remains on edge after 13 Israelis were killed in rocket attacks launched by the terrorist group Hamas. On Thursday, Israel's defense minister met with Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Washington.
It's a real pleasure to welcome Defense Minister Gantz to the State Department. We had an opportunity to spend some time together in Israel just a week or so ago. Very happy today to have the opportunity to pursue that conversation, to talk about the United States' enduring commitment to Israel's security.
During their talk, Secretary Blinken talked about the importance of helping Israel with humanitarian assistance, as well as the reconstruction of Gaza in the wake of the rocket attacks done by Hamas, the terrorist group, earlier last month. Although the Israel-Gaza ceasefire remains intact, clashes have broken out in Jerusalem, testing the truce. On Wednesday, Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, announced they had arrested a senior Hamas terrorist leader in the West Bank. A senior Hamas spokesperson confirmed the arrest and said that the apprehension would not stop further activity by the group in the territory. Gantz stressed the importance of U.S.-Israel alliance and the support they receive. He expressed his gratitude toward the Biden administration.
We convey Israel's appreciation for the administration, for the president, for yourself, for the ongoing support, which is very important for us in our challenging area.
Israel is facing many political challenges of its own, with reports emerging late Wednesday that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may face a swift parliamentary vote that could end his 12 years of power in the country. This as Israel's parliament also elected a new president who will start in July. Some experts say not to count Netanyahu out just yet. Steve Lance, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
The Massachusetts Steamship Authority is recovering from a ransomware attack that happened on Wednesday. Now the transit group is asking customers to bring cash for tickets and parking. NTD's Kevin Hogan has the story.
A ransomware attack shut down online reservations for the largest ferry service to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket in Massachusetts. The cyber attack occurred early Wednesday, and the local transit authority said it is still assessing the impact and who perpetrated it. The steamship service said it will not be charging rescheduling or cancellation fees. What's more, since GPS systems were not affected, regular trips to the islands will continue, but customers need to bring cash and there may be delays. The state's attorney general says the slew of recent cyber attacks is incredibly concerning.
We need to do everything we can to make sure that we've got the investments in place, the resources in place, the right technology in place to block and stop these cyber attacks and these ransomware attacks. And that is something that has to happen through direct conversation and collaboration between and among local, state, and federal officials and agencies.
The ransomware attack in Massachusetts is not the only cyber attack on U.S. transportation recently. In April, hackers with suspected ties to China breached New York City's MTA servers. But luckily, hackers did not access systems related to trains, safety, or employee or customer information. The MTA chief said the authority quickly and aggressively responded to the attack. The chief said the MTA's multi-layered security systems prevented it from spreading. The New York Times first reported on the breach and said the efforts to assess the incident cost the MTA about $370,000. The MTA said CISA ordered patches and fixes within 1 day of the hack. The New York Times says the hit to the MTA is one of several attacks that cybersecurity experts suspect are backed by the Chinese regime one way or another. The wave of attacks uncovered in April targeted dozens of financial institutions, government agencies, and contractors. The Massachusetts Steamship Authority said phone and online services would continue to be impacted through Thursday. Kevin Hogan, NTD News, New York.
How are southern counties in Texas coping with the influx of illegal immigrants? A chief deputy and rancher tell NTD how their county is doing so far and what their main concerns are. NTD's Allison Lee has that story.
Jackson County, Texas has a population of just 5,500 and is over 150 miles away from the southern border. But the county's chief deputy tells NTD they are still seeing a huge increase in illegal immigrants on bailouts compared to last year.
We've come across stolen vehicles coming out of Houston, headed to the valley, bailouts, numerous bailouts, and like I said, especially up in the northern area of Jackson County and southern.
The chief deputy says a major highway going through Jackson County is a main corridor that illegal immigrants travel on.
We got some in the trunk, too.
Traffickers would set up staging areas where immigrants get dropped off and transfer vehicles. Luckily, Jackson County hasn't seen a rise in crime, but the sheriff's office has arrested and charged numerous people for trafficking.
We've arrested illegal aliens, people transporting the illegal aliens for profit. We've had, since January, we've had like 17 different cases.
A local rancher tells NTD his biggest concern is that while children play around during the day, they might come across human traffickers without knowing.
No, well, it used to be at nighttime. It was always at nighttime, but starting this year, back in January, it'd be in the middle of the day, broad daylight, 10 o'clock in the morning, or even 3 or 4 in the afternoon, they'd come through.
The rancher says this has been happening over the past 2 to 3 years, but the situation has gotten a lot worse since January this year. Illegal immigrants are leaving behind a lot more trash.
This is the trash left behind. They'll pull in here, and I don't know if they sit here and take a break or what they do, but they'll leave trash all in the brush, all scattered around here where they pull off of the county road.
The rancher says his day-to-day activities haven't been much impacted, but he hopes the federal government can place more agents at the border. He says stopping trafficking at the border is the best way to deal with the problems in his county. Allison Lee, NTD News.
News app Newsbreak is popular among many Americans, but its roots are actually tied to China. Recently, people are starting to question if this self-proclaimed local news platform is really immune from Beijing's influence. Here are the details.
Popular news app Newsbreak may have close ties with Communist China. This, according to a report by U.S.-based digital news magazine The Wire China. Concerns are rising that the Chinese regime may have influenced the app. Newsbreak was launched 6 years ago. It now says it has 45 million monthly active users. It's in third place on the Apple Store's news apps downloads chart and in first place on the Google Play Store. Particle Media owns Newsbreak. California-based businessman Jeff Zhang co-founded the company in 2015. Zhang is originally from China and is a former Yahoo executive. He also founded a top Chinese news app in 2013 in Beijing, and Newsbreak is regarded as its English language version and part of its international expansion strategy.
I think the concern with the news aggregator app is that a company like that could come under pressure to, manipulate the environment and the information in a way that might be very subtle and a way that might actually be hard for users or even analysts to detect. And you don't know what you don't know.
In 2014, Zhang sold nearly half of the Chinese app's shares to Phoenix New Media. It's a subsidy of Phoenix Media Investment based in Hong Kong, and the Chinese regime partially owns the company. The news app soon became part of Beijing's propaganda machine, helping the regime with its political agenda and information control. Newsbreak now claims it no longer has ties to Phoenix Media or the Chinese news app, but it admits that at least from 2015 to 2019, its early supporters were companies partly owned by the Chinese Communist regime. Sinologist Martin Hala at Charles University in Prague tells The Wire China that given Newsbreak's close ties to Beijing, it is not immune to pressure from Chinese authorities. Another concern is the potential privacy risk, because Newsbreak's data requests are expansive. Data scientist Daniel Cho at Georgetown University tells The Wire China, essentially, this is a tracking app. Its privacy policy even allows cross-border data transfer. So far, there is no hard evidence that Newsbreak is actively involved in Beijing's influence operations. But observers believe that the risks are there and that Beijing can switch on the capability at any time.
This kind of laying of a foundation of access to the information dissemination infrastructure of other countries, then something happens. It's COVID, it's the Xinjiang crisis. Suddenly the CCP feels that it needs to defend itself, and it will activate those channels.
On Monday, Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping re-emphasized his regime's international propaganda push. It includes guiding international public opinion and winning a battle of narratives against the U.S. and its allies.
President Biden signed an executive order Thursday banning U.S. investment in dozens of Chinese companies. This order will take effect on August 2nd. 59 Chinese companies were put on the blacklist, including Huawei Technologies, China Mobile Communications Group, China Nuclear Corporations, and China Shipbuilding Industry Group. The executive order prevents investment in these Chinese defense and surveillance technology companies. The list includes Chinese companies that develop or use Chinese surveillance technology to facilitate repression or serious human rights abuse. White House officials said the U.S. will not support Chinese companies that undermine the security or values of the U.S. and its allies. And the Biden administration will continue to update the list of Chinese entities. And a new project from billionaires Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. They're joining hands to build a nuclear power plant in Wyoming. NTD's Christina Kim brings us the details.
Pacificor, which is owned by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, is teaming up with Bill Gates' TerraPower for a joint initiative. Wyoming's Governor Mark Gordon announced the plan to host a first-of-its-kind nuclear power plant on Wednesday.
And today's announcement really, truly is game-changing and monumental for Wyoming.
The nuclear power plant will be built at a soon-to-be-retired coal-fired plant over the next several years. According to TerraPower, the project features a 345-megawatt sodium-cooled fast reactor with a molten, salt-based energy storage system. This would produce enough power for roughly 250,000 homes. Gordon says this will help one of the state's energy goals, but made it clear that fossil fuels, which he called the bedrock of their economy, isn't going anywhere.
Earlier this year, I set a goal for Wyoming to be a carbon-negative state and continue to use fossil fuels. I am not going to abandon any of our fossil fuel industry.
The plant will be a multi-billion-dollar project, and the costs will be split evenly between the government and private industry. That's according to TerraPower's president and CEO. Wyoming is both a top coal mining and top uranium mining state. The reactor proposal comes as the Biden administration seeks to reduce carbon emissions by half compared to 2005 levels. They hope to achieve this by 2030. Christina Kim, NTD News.
New claims for jobless benefits dropped below 400,000 for the first time since the pandemic began, indicating further healing in the labor market. NTD's Lin brings us more.
The U.S. Labor Department said Thursday first-time claims for unemployment benefits totaled 385,000 for the week ended May 29th, the lowest since mid-March 2020.
We got a fifth straight week of declines in new jobless claims, down below the 400,000 level. And mind you, that 400,000 level during past downturns has been seen as psychologically significant.
The last time lower number was 256,000 for the week of March 14th, 2020. Then it peaked at more than 6.5 million in late March. Currently, over 15.4 million Americans are still receiving various benefits. That's about half what it was a year ago. Private employers have stepped up hiring. Private payrolls added by close to 1 million jobs last month, an increase of nearly 50% from April, and the biggest increase since last June, according to an ADP report released Thursday.
And we saw a good distribution of jobs across the landscape, across sectors, including the goods-producing realm as well as the services realm. And that's what we want to see.
25 states led by Republican governors are terminating pandemic unemployment benefits early, including a weekly $300 jobless subsidy. They hope it will encourage millions of workers to go back to work, citing labor shortage in their states. These states account for more than 40% of the workforce. Lin, NTD News.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signs his state's budget. He says Florida is giving raises to teachers, police, and others while still lowering taxes, all because of staying open during the pandemic.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed his state's $101 billion budget Wednesday. The budget includes a $1,000 bonus for every teacher, police officer, and first responder, and raises the minimum salary for teachers to $47,500. It also raises the minimum wage for all state employees to $13 per hour. Upon signing the budget, DeSantis said, "We will be signing a budget that responsibly supports our men and women in law enforcement, our K-12 education students and teachers, conserves and protects our great environmental and natural resources throughout the state of Florida, but does so in a way that has the lowest per capita tax burden of any state in the country." DeSantis' office said the budget also leaves nearly $10 billion in reserve and lowers taxes by almost $170 million. The budget also includes significant investment in transportation, economic development, and environmental protection. DeSantis says the favorable budget is a result of following the science and refusing to close businesses and schools during the pandemic. He said, "A lot of people were trying to tell me to close restaurants like this last summer. We didn't do it. We kept business open. We got kids in school." DeSantis says the choice led to a strong rebound for the state's economy, which made the budget possible.
Body cam footage has just been released of a shootout between law enforcement and a 12-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl. NTD Sapphire Quarter takes us through it, and just a warning, the footage may be distressing.
Tuesday night, a 12-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl engaged in a shootout with the police. We see here the three police officers hiding behind a tree for cover. The girl was shot and taken to the hospital. As of Wednesday afternoon, she's in stable condition. No police were injured. The incident started hours earlier when the two minors ran away from the Florida United Methodist Children's home and broke into someone's house. The owner says the house contained a shotgun, an AK-47, and a handgun, as well as around 200 rounds of ammunition.
Put the gun down now! Hey guys, just hold behind hard cover. Let's not shoot these kids, man. Let's just hold. Take our time.
Over the course of half an hour, the children fired at the deputies 4 separate times.
Do not approach that door. She's got a shotgun pointed at that door inside on entry. Just so I'm clear for everybody, nobody should be approaching anything.
The kids eventually emerged in the garage where the girl was shot. The sheriff said his men took rounds, multiple rounds, until they were left with no other choice but to return fire. The 12-year-old boy surrendered.
You got eyes on her? Well, let's worry about getting her secure.
The sheriff said on Wednesday that the girl had a record and was arrested last year for lighting several vacant lots on fire. Local media reports the kids are being charged with attempted first-degree murder and armed burglary. Sapphire Quarter, NTD News.
As summer draws near, people can now challenge themselves to stay active while giving back to a special community. Organizers in Chicago told NTD about their helpful fitness event.
This month marks the 60th anniversary of a Chicagoland farm home to over 200 adults with developmental disabilities. To celebrate, Lamb's Farm has planned something special, a virtual 60K challenge that anyone can take part in.
As you're either walking, biking, or running, you know you're doing it for a purpose, and that is to support all over 200 Lamb's Farm participants. And just knowing that they're doing it with us too is just a fun way to support us, a fun way to support them, and stay active while doing it.
Lamb's Farm's commitment to encouraging health and community started with their founders, Chicagoans Bob Therese and Corinne Owen. They opened Lamb's Farm as a pet shop in 1961, employing 12 adults with developmental disabilities.
They found that there were people who weren't being allowed to go to school, who didn't have the opportunity to do a lot of other things that they could learn to do if people took the time to teach them. And so that's really what they wanted, was to make sure that they could do as much as they can, even with the disability. And
Yaconetti tells NTD that the co-founders named the farm from the biblical verse, "Feed my lambs."
all they wanted to do was make sure that the people that lived here were taken care of properly, and they've done a wonderful job with it, and we've tried very hard to continue what they started for us.
Today, the residents of Lamb's Farm do a variety of jobs in the farm's many businesses.
So some of them work on the farm, some of them work in their houses. We've got all kinds of different jobs that need to be done. Some of them work out in the community at different places, Ace Hardware and some of the other places in the community. They've worked there for years. And they're all really happy to do that. They want to be fulfilled, just like we do.
Yaconetti says that many visitors don't realize the uniqueness of the Lamb's Farm staff at first, and she doesn't always tell them.
One thing I would never want is for people to feel sorry for them or to treat them, as though there's something wrong with them, because there really isn't. They're just people, just like the rest of us.
Details on how to sign up for the 60K challenge can be found on lambsfarm.org. Registration and participation continue until the end of this month.
The American Museum of Natural History in New York City is best known for its dinosaurs, but there's another hall visitors especially enjoy, and it's about to reopen. NTD's Arian Pazdar visited the museum.
Who doesn't like hidden gems? But these aren't hidden anymore. They are now in exhibition here at the Hall of Gems and Minerals. New Yorkers have been waiting for the opening, but not because of COVID. They actually closed the hall 4 years ago. Now it's finally open again, and they say it rocks. Some of the specimens seen in the museum were found by New York City construction workers when they built the metro tunnels under the Big Apple. But of course, not all come from New York. The redesigned halls feature more than 5,000 specimens, sourced from almost 100 countries. Some of those are the largest stibnite specimen, which comes from China. It weighs almost half a ton and has hundreds of sword-like crystals. Or the Singing Stone, a massive block found in Arizona and first exhibited in Chicago in the 1890s. One of the curators of the renewed hall explains its design.
In this exhibition, all the jewels are grouped together. It's not a chronological march down time. And I believe that this allows you to easily compare and contrast designs over time and see how things change in terms of gems and metal and designs.
The museum is already open again to the public, but if you want to visit this hall specifically, you're going to have to wait just a little bit more because they're going to open to the public on June 12th. I'm Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
One man's annoying hum is another man's buzz. One New Jersey music professor has started a band with a guitarist, a drummer, and some cicadas.
For some in the U.S., the emergence of billions of cicadas this spring after a 17-year slumber is met with annoyance, particularly over their loud, buzzing calls. But for David Rothenberg, a professor of music, it presents a unique opportunity for collaboration.
We're combining human musical ideas with nature's musical ideas.
He's gathered fellow musicians at a nature preserve in Princeton, New Jersey. As cicadas swarm all around, Rothenberg with his clarinet and others on percussion and saxophone holds an improvisational jam using the insect's trill as their guide. The author of Bug Music said his fascination with nature sounds began as a child growing up in Connecticut.
Some people, of course, think I'm crazy, like what is it? It's just this gimmick, like it's serious stuff that nature has inspired humanity in all art forms more than anything else for centuries.
Guitarist Tim Blunk jokes that the newly hatched insects are the most cooperative musicians he's ever played with.
They're never late. They always stay for the whole gig, and they don't really, you don't have to pay them. They're like the ideal musical partners.
The cicadas, known as Brood X, began emerging from the earth last month in Washington, D.C., and 15 states in the western United States. While they're here, the band savors the rare chance to jam with them.
SpaceX launched a rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida on Thursday. It's carrying thousands of pounds of supplies to the International Space Station. The spacecraft will deliver 7,300 pounds of science equipment and supplies for the crew. It's also carrying new hardware for the space station, like new solar arrays. The crew aboard the ISS are conducting hundreds of science experiments. They believe their research could help improve life on Earth and also assist in future long-duration missions to the Moon and Mars. And coming up, 2 Utah girls decided they wanted to drive to see the California coast and dolphins on their own. Except neither of them are old enough to even have a license. We'll see what happened. And a newly redesigned Disneyland attraction in California will be welcoming the Avengers campus soon. More on that in just a moment.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate co-pays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month.
I called to get dental, transportation, meals, and the Give Back benefit.
With this virus situation, I called to get everything I'm entitled to. I couldn't believe I was missing out on so many benefits.
With the uncertainty of the virus, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-764-1930. That's 1-800-764-1930 now.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me.
you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Officials in a region of California seized the largest amount of fentanyl in the district's history. Several people were arrested in connection with the distribution. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang with more.
The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of California announced on Tuesday a seizure of over 40 pounds of fentanyl. This is the largest in the history of the district. Prosecutors say 6 East Bay residents and 1 Oregon resident are charged with drug trafficking related to the distribution of fentanyl in the Bay Area. Javier Castro Venegas Medina, 39, is alleged to be the leader of the drug trafficking organization. The U.S. Department of Justice said the 7 defendants reside in Oakland, San Leandro, Alameda, Tracy, and Oregon. According to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine, and that it is often added to heroin to increase its potency. But users who buy heroin and didn't know they are buying fentanyl often lead to overdose deaths. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
A former San Francisco official was arrested for a suspected robbery attempt while volunteering at a food bank. However, the allegations are not about money, but for something that should have been bountiful there. NTD's Jason Blair has the details.
A former San Francisco Public Works director has been arrested for an alleged knife-point robbery on Wednesday morning. SFPD arrested Mohammed Nuru after responding to a call to the San Francisco Marin Food Bank in the Dogpatch neighborhood. A police statement says Nuru was arrested after he allegedly approached a man with a knife and demanded his property, and that property was potato chips. According to the food bank's organization's communications manager, the victim told police he was in the break room when approached by a knife-wielding Nuru. Nuru allegedly demanded the victim's potato chips, but later on said he was kidding. There were no witnesses to the incident. Nuru's attorney has not yet released any statements regarding the incident. He is said to be a frequent volunteer at the food bank and was volunteering at the time of the incident. Nuru is also still under investigation for an alleged attempted bribery scheme he was arrested for in January of 2020. Jason Blair, NTD News, California.
In San Francisco, public transportation surveillance footage shows a suspect attempting to light a woman's hair on fire. SFPD says other passengers assisted the victim. Police are looking for the suspect and 2 people of interest. We hear more from NTD's David Lamb.
The San Francisco Police Department released surveillance footage of a suspect using a lighter to allegedly light a woman's hair on fire Wednesday. They were on the number 5 Fulton Street Muni bus, according to SFPD. In the video, the suspect is dressed in red and finds a seat behind a passenger. He is seen bringing a lighter behind the woman's head multiple times. At approximately 2:25 p.m., officers responded to the incident. Other passengers assisted the victim. She left the scene prior to police arrival. The bus operator confirmed to officers that a passenger's hair had been set on fire by the unidentified suspect. He was described as a black male in his teens, last seen with a matching red outfit and a black backpack. The victim was described as a woman of Filipino or Latin descent, between 50 and 60 years of age, with dark hair and eyeglasses. SFPD investigators are asking the victim to come forward and provide a statement. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Despite many people emigrating from California, not everyone is running away. 2 children took their family car for a trip to the Golden State Coast, but didn't make it very far. Luckily, no one was harmed.
Body camera video shows an officer in West Valley City, Utah, approaching a smashed vehicle in shock.
She's driving?
There he finds a 9-year-old girl in the driver's seat, accompanied by her 4-year-old sister. The sisters say they are on their way to California for a beach vacation and to swim with the dolphins. After snagging the keys of their family car in the middle of the night, they managed to drive for miles before crashing into a semi-truck. Miraculously, both girls had their seatbelts fastened and were completely unharmed. A similar incident occurred in May 2020 when a Utah Highway Patrol trooper saw this SUV going about 30 miles per hour and swerving left and right on Interstate Highway 15. The trooper pulled it over and found a 5-year-old child in the driver's seat by himself.
Hey, my granddaughter, calm down. All right. How
The boy told the trooper he was driving to California to buy a Lamborghini for himself. He had $3 in his pocket. Thankfully, the child and the SUV were both unharmed. The highway patrol returned him to his parents.
California's Disneyland has an all-new Avengers campus. It will be opening to the public on Friday. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang with more.
Spider-Man will fly high above Disneyland Resort's newly redesigned Avengers campus in California when it starts welcoming the public on Friday. Action heroes will be seen tumbling through the air as guests below meet Iron Man, Black Panther, and other Marvel superheroes on the 6-acre campus. Highlights include an aerial Spider-Man robot that performs somersaults while flying 60 feet in the air.
Here at Avengers Campus, you're going to experience more heroes in one location than any other place in this universe. We have experiences where you're going to get to see Spider-Man climb up a wall, crawl across the rooftops. He's going to soar high above the campus. And then over here at the Avengers headquarters, you're going to see Black Widow and Black Panther square off against bad guys all day long.
Guests can also ride a Spider-Man attraction called Web Slingers, where they team with the character to battle out-of-control spider bots. Physical sets and virtual environments will blend to make the visitors feel like they are slinging webs, just like the character, designers said.
Well, I think the great thing is it's a living place. You never know when the next hero will appear. And so every time you come back into this land, you potentially could see something new, a new experience, a new character, a new hero. So that's what's really great. It's that dynamic feeling that it's always changing, always evolving.
Food options for the new campus include a cart offering shawarma, mini pasta, impossible meatballs, soda, and more. The Disneyland Resort reopened to the public on April 30th after being closed for more than a year due to the pandemic. As part of the ongoing safety measures, Disneyland is accepting guests only from California until June 15th. Afterwards, it will start allowing visitors from other states. Guests are currently required to wear face masks. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
Coming up, LinkedIn now censors some users' content in China. They say it's to respect local law, but critics accuse them of kowtowing to the regime. And the Chinese regime is denouncing a new social trend in the country. Young people there are now embracing a do-nothing approach to life. That and more on NTD News. LinkedIn is blocking access to certain content, but only for those visiting the site in China. The platform's notice to users says the move aims to fulfill local legal requirements. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the details.
LinkedIn is apparently blocking access to some content for users in China. It's in order to, as they call, respect legal requirements. This, according to screenshots LinkedIn users posted on Twitter. American writer and political commentator Ben Weingarten posted an official message LinkedIn sent to him. It says, your profile and activity, such as items you share with your network, are not visible to those accessing LinkedIn from within China at this time. He posted the screenshot on June 3rd with a comment that says, unbelievable, yet totally believable, on the eve of the Tiananmen Square massacre, a sign of the world's continued kowtowing to the Chinese Communist Party. 32 years ago, on June 4th, Chinese soldiers opened fire on unarmed students and citizens in Beijing's Tiananmen Square and nearby areas. It's estimated that thousands of people died. This after students protested for months against CCP officials' corruption and demanded democracy. Taiwan-based writer and consultant J. Michael Cole also noticed similar LinkedIn restrictions. In an official notice sent to him, the company says, we will work with you to minimize the impact if you update the publication section of your profile, adding, but the decision whether to update your profile is yours. A comment on Twitter mocks LinkedIn's notice, saying this is a false choice and a forced choice. The comment says the Chinese Communist Party excels at presenting people with false choices. The notice also says LinkedIn offers a localized version in China. But another Twitter user believes using the term localized is pathetic, saying LinkedIn's creative use of localized version is another way of saying censorship. The comment says, please don't abuse this word. You're just afraid of the Chinese government. NTD cannot yet independently verify what prohibited content refers to. Cole gives a list of items that the Chinese regime may consider to be sensitive, including Taiwan, Hong Kong, Xinjiang, the South China Sea, among others. The social network platform started operating in China since 2014. It decided to stick to the CCP censorship laws to get access, and now has over 50 million users across China. Earlier this year, LinkedIn announced it is pausing new member signups in China in order to respect local laws. The mayor of Hungary's capital, Budapest, says he will rename streets in his city near a planned campus of a Chinese university. He says the project would put Hungary's anti-communist values in question and would commemorate human rights abuses by Beijing. One street will be named after the Dalai Lama, the exiled spiritual leader of Tibet. Another will be called Uyghur Martyrs Road, after the ethnic group that the U.S. and other nations say has been a victim of Beijing's genocide. And a third will be called Free Hong Kong Road. Beijing reacted to the name change by saying Hungary's behavior is contemptible.
A Dutch nonprofit says TikTok fails to protect millions of young users' privacy and safety. It filed a lawsuit against the video sharing platform on behalf of 64,000 parents.
A Dutch non-profit this week registered a collective action with a Dutch court on behalf of 64,000 parents from the Netherlands and other EU countries. SoMe alleges TikTok violates children's privacy by collecting data without proper permission. And it does not disclose what the data is used for and where it is stored. Recent reports say users' data is sent to China. With this, the platform breaches European privacy law. TikTok is owned by Chinese tech giant ByteDance and has 700 million users worldwide. SoMe also says TikTok fails to protect minors' safety. There have been several deaths globally associated with so-called TikTok challenges. A 10-year-old Italian girl in January died after participating in a choking challenge promoted on the platform. A lawyer working with SoMe on the case says the risk of children on TikTok should not be underestimated and the good intentions of TikTok should not be overestimated. It often seems nice and harmless, but TikTok is just a profiling and advertising machine. Parents who join the suit can receive compensation of up to £1,700 for under 13-year-olds. SoMe says the total claim amount can reach more than £1.2 billion. Its co-director says it's more than about compensation.
In the end, we hope that regulators will take over and force TikTok to change their way of doing. That's the ultimate purpose. We as a small organization, we are not really capable of doing TikTok harm. There has to be somebody with an iron fist.
SoMe hopes the suit will make the Irish Data Protection Commissioner take action. They are the regulator responsible for TikTok. SoMe filed a complaint with the Commissioner in April. TikTok says it believes it's not a violation of European law. This is not the first lawsuit against the platform. In the UK, former Children's Commissioner Anne Longfield in April sued TikTok on behalf of 3.5 million children. And the EU Commission gave the platform last week 1 month to respond to child safety concerns raised by European consumer protection agencies.
A new trend is gaining traction among young people in China to do nothing in life and sustain one's existence at a minimal level. But the Chinese regime was quick to denounce it. What is behind this phenomenon?
Among China's young people in their 20s and 30s, a saying is quickly gaining popularity and trending on social media. That is lie-flatism. Some Chinese netizens also call it the do-nothing approach or the lie-down movement. The term originated from a post on a popular Chinese online forum, and the forum has since removed the post. The term means lowering one's temptations to a minimum, not working, not buying real estate, not going shopping, not getting married, and not having kids, only sustaining one's existence at a minimal level. It reflects a lifestyle and an attitude to life. People following the idea say they don't want to be slaves of money. A Chinese netizen agrees, saying, no matter how hard you work, you cannot get rich. You are merely a tool that other people use and discard when it's worn out. Think it over. Indeed, we don't need to be so tired. Another says, the greatest devaluation in our society is not the devaluation of currency, but the devaluation of your efforts. This is the most desperate. A comment pinpoints the root cause of the movement, saying to lie flat reflects a person's extreme disappointment in the future and extreme despair in a lack of social justice. He then adds, the gap between the rich and the poor is getting wider and wider. There are 600 million Chinese with a monthly income of under $150, so they have to control their temptations and lie flat. A Chinese official said at a forum earlier this year that China's income gap is still large. Around 720 million Chinese earn less than $300 a month. A 2019 report from the Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences reveals the heavy burden on families that want to raise a child. The report says families in some areas in Shanghai with annual incomes under $8,000 spend over 70% of their earnings on the child, usually until the child turns 15. As the do-nothing approach gains popularity, the Chinese communist regime started to take notice. A Chinese media mildly warned that if this lie-flatism becomes popular among young people, it will turn into a force of resistance and challenge the existing social structure. Beijing began to adopt a harder stance as the trend grew in popularity. A CCP mouthpiece warned, saying it's obvious those followers of lie-flatism will do much harm to our economic and social development. We should be aware. Another CCP mouthpiece criticized the trend as shameful, saying it lacks a sense of justice. Soon after, other Chinese state-owned media started to say, you can accept your fate, but cannot lie flat. U.S.-based news commentator Shi Shan tries to explain what Beijing means by it.
You may accept your fate as it is, but if you want to lie flat and not work, it's absolutely not permitted.
Shi says the choice to lie flat and stay away from pressure is very personal. It's nothing political. But if the communist regime starts to criticize it and even suppress the trend, they make it very, very political.
A herd of elephants in China has embarked on a long journey, trekking at least 300 miles. But where to? Wildlife authorities say they don't know why the animals left their nature reserve to begin with. NTD's Christina Kim has more for us.
The herd of wild animals left a nature reserve near the city of Pu'er last year. They've since walked at least 300 miles north, approaching a major city called Kunming on Wednesday. The group started out with 16 elephants, but 2 reportedly returned home, and 1 baby was born during the walk, bringing the total number of elephants back up to 15. Drone images show 6 female and 3 male adults, with 3 juveniles and 3 calves. It's not clear why these gentle giants embarked on the long journey, but it may be a lack of food. Chinese state-run media Xinhua reports a decline of edible plants in forest habitats. Another theory is that an inexperienced leader has led the whole group astray. Authorities have tried to redirect the elephants using roadblocks and food to entice the animals, but it wasn't successful. Asian elephant expert Chen Mingyong tells Xinhua this is the longest distance migration of wild elephants recorded in China. But the elephants' journey hasn't been a walk in the park for everyone. They've reportedly caused $1.1 million in damage to farmland. A large task force, cars, and drones are tracking the elephants' movements, and residents are urged to not try to come into contact with the animals. Christina Kim, NTD News.
Coming up, a famed Parisian museum reopens after undergoing 4 years of restoration. We'll take a closer look at the new space and the artworks inside. And as entertainment venues reopen in the UK, performers at London's West End Theatre come together for one grand production, appropriately named The Show Must Go On. All that and more here on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled My Pillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or My Pillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
France is getting ready to mark the 77th anniversary of the D-Day landings. Preparations are being made for the official opening of the British Normandy Memorial just in time for the commemorations on Sunday.
The British Normandy Memorial will be officially opened on Sunday, the 77th anniversary of the D-Day landings. The memorial includes the D-Day sculpture by British sculptor David Williams Ellis, and a crown and shield designed and created by 2 French sculptors. The D-Day landings marked the beginning of the liberation of Western Europe. The memorial also features the D-Day wall, on which the names of those who died are inscribed, and on the 160 stone columns, the names of all those who lost their lives between D-Day and the liberation of Paris in August 1944. The memorial overlooks Gold Beach, one of the 3 British landing beaches on that momentous day. For the workers who are putting the finishing touches to the memorial, it has been overwhelming just to be part of it.
Well, when you stand here and you look out across the English Channel, it's wonderful just to think about 77 years ago, where the soldiers were coming off the beach onto the land here, and the bullets firing at them from the Germans. It's a trembling thought just to think about that.
A limited number of guests will take part in the ceremony in France on Sunday. The main UK event marking the occasion will be held at the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire, where veterans and their families will be gathered.
A famed museum in Paris is open again after 4 years of restoration. The venue showcases Parisian history through various art pieces and small treasures. NTD's David Vives brings us there.
It's been 4 years since these art pieces haven't seen any visitors. The Carnavalet Museum is reopening along with other cultural venues in France after months of lockdown. It's one of the largest museums in Paris, dedicated to the history of the French capital. Inside, you'll find a glimpse of 2,000-year-old Paris, Paris under the reigns of French king, and Paris during revolutionary times, a story of light and shadows.
The museum was built in the 19th century. Paris was under heavy urban construction, and a lot of old vestiges were found, as well as arts. This is a museum that tells this story, and every Parisian finds a part of themselves here.
The paintings, sculptures, and other artworks were restored, Deschamps says.
These beautiful animals found their true colors again. This pastoral scene is a very well-designed piece of interior decoration.
Even walls were transported, such as the roof of this room. This was made by Charles Lebrun, displaying angels and cherubs. Lebrun was a 17th century painter, and this was one of his first creations, before he was hired by the French king to work in Versailles.
Here we are in a 17th century room with golden decor.
A remembrance of the time when nobility resided in golden rooms. The restoration of old interior decorations also shows the evolution of fine arts, from the classical Romantic period to the Belle Époque era in the early 20th century. Visitors can also find curious, beautiful art pieces.
Here, you'll find the ancient shop signs. Some of these were very detailed and superbly crafted.
An old Paris that might stay forever, as the museum creators wish it to be. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Stars of West End Productions were thrilled to perform in a musical showcase on Wednesday. The performance of The Show Must Go On marks the return to the stage for many of its actors. NTD's Neil Woodrow brings us the Stage Door Chat.
The showcase of 18 London musicals opened its sold-out run of shows at the Palace Theatre to an audience of over 650 people. The star of the West End production of Pretty Woman, Amy Atkinson, said the performers joining forces in one production was a show of solidarity and reminded everyone of theatre's importance after a challenging year.
We needed that kind of union and coming together and being like, no, we're here, this is what we do, this is like a massive taster of all the shows that are available in the West End, and, you know, come back and see us.
Actor Jordan Luke Gage, who plays Romeo in & Juliet and is gearing up to star in Heathers, said the existence of the show must go on highlighted how loved the theatre industry was.
It is the heartbeat of so many people's lives, and it kind of takes losing something for you to realise how important it is.
On Wednesday, Boris Johnson said he has seen no data to suggest continuing lockdown beyond June 21st, but there still needs to be caution. Actor Gage said he was remaining positive about possible delays.
I feel like we will be able to battle whatever happens.
Les Miserables actor John Owen Jones was also optimistic.
We will be back stronger than ever, I think.
The show features 50 performers, including a choir made up of Musical Theatre 2020 graduates and a full orchestra. Capacity at the theatre is reduced to 50%. Audience members have to wear face masks at all times and are temperature checked before entering the venue. All profits from the show will go to performing arts charities, Acting for Others and the Fleabag Support Fund. Don't worry if you haven't got a ticket. It'll also be live streamed on Sunday, June 6th. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, London.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox. We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter.